Hey, it's Yay for Yarn, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet the Boundless Cowl, a seamlessly grafted infinity scarf. So this infinity scarf uses a rather unconventional method of construction. Instead of, making a foundation chain and joining it together and working the cowl or scarf in the round, this one is going to be worked as a strip, a flat piece, and then the ends are going to be seamlessly grafted together. And this technique creates a completely invisible join. It does not affect the fabric in any way. It is truly seamlessly grafted. You cannot see the join anywhere. So what you're going to need for this project is, first of all, the written pattern, which you can find by clicking the link in the description box to visit my blog, or you can purchase the large print, ad-free printable PDF version of the pattern in my Ravelry store. You'll also need a size H or 5mm crochet hook. This is a Furl Streamline. You can check out my review on this hook in the description box below. And you're going to need a yarn needle or a blunt tapestry needle for weaving in your ends. You're going to need a measuring tape or a ruler, specifically for measuring your gauge and measuring the size of your finished project. You're going to need some scissors, and you're going to need a length of waste yarn. And most importantly, of course, you're going to need the yarn that you want to make your project in. This is the yarn from the October 2018 Knit Crate membership. It's a DK weight, and I'm going to be using this for my infinity scarf. So this is the stitch pattern that we're going to be working the scarf in, and it's relatively simple, but the way I designed this stitch is so that it can teach both of the main techniques that you'll need to use for grafting, so that you can use this project to learn how to seamlessly graft crochet, and then you can apply the same techniques to other projects in other stitch patterns if you like. So we're going to begin by working our scarf into a provisional foundation chain. And that basically means we're going to make a foundation chain out of a piece of waste yarn that we can later unravel and remove that foundation chain so that we can seamlessly graft the top edge of the work to what would have been the foundation chain edge. And you'll also want to note that the gauge measurements for this pattern are for after the work is blocked. So you're going to need to make your gauge swatch and block it to get the correct gauge, and check to make sure that your scarf will turn out to be the correct size. Although exact gauge is not critical for this project, as it is a scarf cowl and it's not going to have to fit precisely. So I'm going to take my waste yarn, and I am going to begin by chaining 58 stitches. And if you are making it smaller or larger as far as the width goes, if you want to make it more narrow or more wide, or if you just want to do a swatch to test your gauge, you're going to chain a multiple of 7 stitches plus 2. So that means you're going to need a number of chains that is a multiple of 7, and then you're going to add 2. So let's say we wanted to do 49 stitches, which is a multiple of 7, then we would also add 2 to get 51. And that would be how many you would chain to make a different size of the width of the scarf, or to make a gauge swatch. So now that I have my provisional foundation chain, I'm going to go ahead and cut my waste yarn and tie off the foundation chain. So let's have a look at this chain for a moment. This is just your typical ordinary chain stitch, but on the front side we have these strands that are on the side of the chain that make a little V shape for each chain stitch. And on the back side, if we turn this over, we still have those same strands that are on the outside, but we also have this vertical kind of bump strand that goes across the back or down the back of each chain stitch. That's what we're going to be working into. We're not going to be working into either of the strands of yarn on the side of the chain stitches. We're going to be turning it over and working into this one right here on the back of the chain stitch. Now, if you don't work into the back of the chain stitch, then it's not going to be the end of the world, because you will be able to just kind of unpick the each individual chain stitch. But if you do work into the backs of the chain stitches, you will be able to unravel the chain more easily than if you work into any other part of the stitch. So another thing I'm going to mention right here before we start is that I'm going to be using a chainless starting double crochet to begin each row. Now, if you've never worked a chainless starting double crochet before, then you can click the link in the description box to see my video tutorial on how to work that stitch. And it's not as hard as it sounds. It's very similar to a regular double crochet, and that creates a kind of a starting stitch that looks just like a double crochet instead of using a turning chain. However, if you would rather use a turning chain, then you can replace every place in the pattern that it says chainless starting double crochet, you can replace that with a chain 3 turning chain. So I'm now going to take my working yarn that I'm going to use for the project for my scarf. And what we're going to do is, if you're using a turning chain, then you will go ahead and insert your hook into the first chain stitch, like so, and then pull up a loop of your yarn and do your chain 3 for your turning chain. So here's my working yarn, and we're going to start by making a slip knot, like so, and placing it on the hook. And we're going to start by working into this provisional foundation chain that we'll be able to unravel later. Now, to make the chain as easy to unravel as possible, we're going to want to start on the beginning end of the foundation chain. So this is where we started chaining to make our foundation chain, where we would start at this end, as opposed to if we start at this end, then we will have to again pick out every individual chain stitch to unravel the chain. And again, we're going to be working into the back of the chain stitch, that little vertical bump on the back of each chain stitch. So for the first row, or row 1, I'm going to hold on to that slip knot that's on my hook and work a double crochet into the back of that first chain stitch. And it's very important that when you work into this provisional foundation chain that you don't split the yarn, because that will make it harder to unravel later. So I've worked that first double crochet. I'm also going to work another double crochet into the back of the next chain stitch, like so. And that is the first part of our stitch pattern. And now we're going to do a little repeat sequence. So what we're going to do is skip the next 2 stitches, and then I'm going to work a set of stitches all at once into the next stitch. So that set is 2 double crochet, chain 1, and then 2 more double crochet, all into that same stitch, like so. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches after that. Like so. So that is what our little repeat section is going to look like, starting from here. So now we're going to go ahead and repeat that again. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and then we're going to work that shell into the next stitch, which is 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more double crochet. All right, then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to repeat that little sequence all the way across my provisional foundation chain until I get to the end of the row. All right, so I've repeated that sequence all the way across my foundation chain, and that is the end of the first row. So now we're going to start working row 2, which is the row that we're going to be repeating for the entire rest of the scarf. This stitch pattern only has a 1 row repeat, and the first row is basically the same. It's just giving instructions for how to work it into the foundation chain instead of, into the previous rows of crochet that have already been done. So I'm going to take my work and I'm going to turn so we can go back in the other direction. And I'm going to work a chainless starting double crochet in the same stitch. So to do that, you can go and watch my how to work a chainless starting stitch video. I will link that down below. But just as a brief demonstration, you're going to stretch the loop out on your hook until it's about the same size or height as a double crochet, maybe a tad bit longer, and you're going to hold on to it with your forefinger on your crocheting hand just to keep it in place on the hook so it's not sliding around and getting untwisted. So now we're going to bring the crochet hook towards me and then down and then back behind the loop, the double strand of yarn that was the bottom of that loop, because as you can see right here, this is 2 strands of yarn and we're going to kind of yarn over with it. So we're going to bring it towards us, down, and then back out so that we kind of make a yarn over with those 2 strands of that loop. Then we're going to insert into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So that creates a double crochet that does not require a turning chain. But again, if you would rather use a turning chain, you can replace that stitch with a chain 3. So now I'm going to double crochet in the next stitch. And now we're going to begin our little repeat sequence again. I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochet. And then I'm going to work that shell into this chain space right here. So the shell is 2 double crochet, chain 1, and then 2 more double crochet, all into that one chain space. And then we're going to skip the next 2 double crochet and double crochet into the next 2 double crochet. So I'll show you that again. We're going to skip the next 2 double crochet right here and work into the chain space, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more double crochet for our shell. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So one more time, I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches and work into the chain space 2 double crochet, a chain 1, and 2 more double crochet all in that space. Then I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to keep repeating that little sequence all the way across till I get to the end of my row. All right, so that is the end of my second row. And as you can see, we're starting to create columns here. We have columns of these 2 double crochets that are next to each other and columns of our shells. So we're going to keep repeating row 2 until the cowl or scarf is the length that you want. There is a length given in the pattern and a number of rows given in the pattern for the size that I'm making. But if you want to customize it, you can do any number of rows that you want as long as you end up in total with an even number of rows. All right, so I have worked my cowl to the length that I want, and I have completed a total of 70 rows. Now, if you are using the Knit Crate yarn, there is extra yarn left over, so you could make it longer if you want to, and you can make it any length you want as long as you finish with an even number of rows. So what we're going to do is we're going to graft the ends of our cowl together like this. And and this is going to be seamlessly grafted. So what we need to do for this to be possible is we need to go ahead and cut the yarn, leaving a pretty good tail. I'm going to leave about an 18-inch tail. And then we're just going to loosely tie off like that. We're not going to pull it tight. We're just going to let it come through the loop that was on the hook to just keep it from unraveling for now. And what we're going to do is when we go to graft this, we have to unravel the top row and then work it again as we graft across to this foundation edge row. And this is so that we make sure that we have enough yarn to make it all the way across, because for this technique, for the grafting technique, because we have chain spaces that get worked into in this stitch pattern, we have to cut the yarn off of the skein before we can graft anything. And I will explain that a little bit more when we get to that part. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, because this is currently still a flat piece, I'm going to go ahead and block this before we do the grafting, because it's just going to be easier overall to pin it out when it is one flat piece rather than when it is a loop and we have to do it through 2 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and wet block this because this is a non-superwash animal fiber, and that is the best, that is considered the best method of blocking for this type of yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and block my cowl, and then I will show you how to graft the ends together. Alright, so I have blocked my work and I'm ready to go ahead and graft the ends of this together. So you're going to need your crochet hook for this. And what we're going to do is we want the last row to have the right side facing us. And I'm going to kind of bring it down like this, and then bring the top part of the work down, or the foundation edge. We basically want the foundation edge up here, and we want to meet it to the top edge of the work, which is the last row that we just finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of untie off with the working yarn that we had done this row with. So now it is a live stitch right here, and we're going to unravel this last row, and we're going to rework that row to graft the ends of the scarf together. So now I'm back down here to the very last loop of the previous row, and it's as if we had not worked that row yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with whatever kind of stitch that we've been beginning all our rows with. In the pattern, I included a chainless starting double crochet. That is my preferred method, but if you don't want to do that, I also put in the pattern that you can use a chain 3 instead of a chainless starting double crochet. So I'm going to show you how to graft it both ways. And right here, this end, the reason that we started crocheting into our provisional foundation chain at the beginning end, which is over here, is so that the finishing end of the chain is going to be at the right end for us to graft it. So I can now unpick the tie off, and we'll be able to unravel each individual stitch of that foundation chain so that we can slowly work our way across the grafting row. So basically the general method that we use to graft something together, the foundation chain edge with the top edge of the work, is the top loop of every stitch gets pulled through the bottom of one of these stitches up here. So I'm going to show you how to do it for this stitch pattern. If you want to see another demonstration on how to apply this technique to other stitch patterns with, a different style of explanation, then you can go watch my video on that. You can see the link to that video in the description below. So I'm going to show you how to graft it if you're going to do the chain 3 to start your row. So this very edge double crochet right here is getting grafted into the top of this chain 3. So we want to kind of think about how these stitches up here would normally be worked into the row below, because these stitches are going to get worked into the row we're about to crochet, as we go across. And because this is a relatively simple stitch pattern and it's a single row repeat and we've already done it for 70 rows, then you'll probably be pretty familiar with how it goes together. We have columns of shells and columns of 2 double crochets. So this edge right here has a column of 2 double crochets. So the first one is our starting stitch, which is either our chainless starting double crochet or our chain 3. And when we come back and work across it the next time, we put a double crochet into the top of that edge stitch, that turning stitch, so to speak. So for our chain 3, we don't want the stitch above it to be worked into the gap between the chain space and the next stitch. We want it to be worked into the top chain stitch of our chain 3. So what we're going to do is only chain 2, like so. Then we're going to stretch the loop out and let go of it with our hook. I'm going to take the hook out. And then we're going to unravel the stitch, the chain stitch, out of this first double crochet. And so what we're going to do is insert our hook into the bottom of this stitch, following the same path that the waste yarn is going through it, but we're going to do it in the opposite direction we crochet. So because I'm right-handed, I normally crochet from right to left, so I'm going to insert this from left to right. If you are left-handed, you would crochet from left to right, so you're going to insert this from right to left. So because I'm right-handed and I insert it from left to right, I kind of like to turn it upside down, or at least sideways, to do this. So there are basically 2 strands of yarn that wrap around the waste yarn when we have a stitch that is held on that waste yarn. So now that I have my hook inserted into the bottom of that stitch, which is basically just following the path that the waste yarn is going through, I'm going to take the loop from the grafting row, put it back on the hook, and I'm going to use the hook of our crochet hook to pull that loop through the bottom of the stitch above it that we had just inserted into. Now when you do this, you want to kind of make sure that your second chain didn't get too tight, because that happens very easily. We just can kind of pull on it a little bit to loosen it up. And then, now that our top loop is pulled through the bottom of that stitch above, we can work our third chain stitch. So that creates a chain 3 turning chain, where the stitch above it is now worked into that top chain. Now for mine, I've been using the chainless starting double crochet, so I'm going to show you how to do it with that method as well. So my stitch here is still held on the waste yarn. So down here, I'm going to go ahead and stretch out the loop until it is a little bit taller than a double crochet would be, and I'm going to let go of it again. Now I just unraveled the chain 3, so you would do this as the very first step of your grafting row. So now I'm going to insert my hook into the base of that stitch again. It's the same one that I just showed you for the chain 3, because we're just, doing a different method of the same thing. So now I'm going to pull the top of that loop through the base of the stitch in the row above it. And now I'm going to pick up the working yarn and complete all the rest of the steps that you would normally work for a chainless starting double crochet. So we're going to yarn over kind of around these 2 strands down here, but we're not going to push this stitch all the way to the bottom and then work our chainless starting double crochet, because I'm just going to show you real quick. If we do that, then your stitch will be stuck here at the bottom of the chainless starting double crochet, and that's not where it goes. So we want to make sure that the stitch from the row above is at the top, right up against our hook, and we're going to yarn over with this little section down here. So I'm going to bring the hook towards me, down, and then back behind it to make the equivalent of a yarn over. Then insert into the same stitch from the row below, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So that is our chainless starting double crochet grafted into the stitch above. So now what I'm going to do is unravel the chain out of the next stitch in our foundation row, or row 1, because this was our row 1 that we worked up here. So I'm going to pull on the chain yarn to unravel that next stitch. So now the next double crochet is sitting on that waste yarn. And if you remember, we have a column of 2 double crochets going down the edge of our work. So I'm again going to stretch the loop on the hook and let go of it. Then I'm going to insert my crochet hook through the bottom of that double crochet in the opposite direction from what I normally crochet. Just following the same path that the waste yarn is taking. And this is a little bit easier to do it upside down if you're using a hook that has like a more rounded tip at the top, the point. So now that I have my hook inserted into that stitch, I'm going to grab the loop, tighten it back down a bit, and pull it through the base of that double crochet. And now that is going to be the top loop of my next stitch, so I can now work a regular double crochet into the next stitch. So that creates my first pair of stitches, my column of double crochets on this edge. So the next thing we need to do is graft a shell, because we have a column of double crochet and then a column of shells and then a column of double crochet and a column of shells all the way across. So to graft the shell, if you see here, each shell has 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets worked into this chain space. So because the 2 double crochets do not get worked into on the following row, right here, these are the first 2 that get worked into the chain space. They don't get worked into on the next row. So they don't need to be grafted into anything up here, because we're just going to skip the next 2 stitches and work 2 double crochets into the chain space of the next shell, like so. So now we need to create the chain space that this shell up here is going to go into. So to do this, we're going to chain 1, stretch the loop on the hook and let it go. Then I'm going to pull on the waste yarn a little bit more to unravel the next 3 chains. So now we have these 4 double crochets all sitting on this waste yarn. All of this is one shell, and we're going to treat it as one shell because this all gets grafted into that chain space. So what we're going to do is, instead of inserting our hook in the opposite direction we crochet into the next stitch, we're going to treat this set of 4 double crochets as a set and start over here and work into this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. And I'm going to insert in each one of those all the way across. And I like to kind of do this upside down. All right, so now I have my hook going through the base of those 4 double crochets. That's the entire set of stitches for my shell. So now I'm going to grab the loop that I had on my hook, tighten it back down and put it back on the hook. Then I'm also going to yarn over and grab the working yarn and pull the loop on my hook and the working yarn both through 1, 2, 3, 4, all 4 of those stitches. And I'm going to grab the yarn over one that had the working yarn, and I'm going to just stretch that loop out and pull on it until all of the yarn that I have left comes out. And this will be all the yarn that you have left for your row, because remember, we cut the yarn after we did the row and then unraveled it. So that is my chain space grafted in. Now I just have to work 2 more double crochets into that same chain space that we already worked into to finish out the shell in my grafting row. So now you can see that the shell above is seamlessly grafted into the shell we just worked. So now we have another column of 2 double crochets again. So I'm going to pull on the foundation chain yarn again and unravel the next 3 stitches. I'm going to stretch the loop on the hook and let go of it, Now I'm going to, because this is a column of 2 individual double crochets that are worked into 2 separate stitches, I'm only going to insert my hook into the first one, not both of them at once as we did for the shell. So I'm going to insert in the opposite direction I crochet through the base of the next double crochet and grab that loop. Then I'm going to pull it through the bottom of that stitch, like so. I'm going to tighten that loop down just a bit. I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochets and then work a regular double crochet into the next double crochet from the row below. So that's the first stitch of our column of 2 double crochets. Now I'm going to stretch the loop on the hook again and let go of it. I'm going to pull on the waste yarn again to unravel the next chain stitch and reveal this next double crochet that we're going to graft. Then again, I'm going to insert my hook through the base of that stitch in the opposite direction from what I crochet, grab that loop and pull it through the bottom of that stitch. And now I can work a regular double crochet into the next stitch, like so. So now we have the first column grafted on the edge, the shell column, and then another column of double crochet grafted. So now we're going to do another column of shells. So again, we're going to skip the next 2 double crochet and work 2 ordinary double crochets into the next chain space. Then we're going to chain 1, stretch the loop on the hook and let go of it. Now I'm going to pull on the waste yarn to unravel 3 more chains of the foundation chain and kind of separate those 4 double crochets from the shell again. And now we're going to insert in the opposite direction we crochet through all 4 of those double crochets at once. So now I can grab that loop, put it back on my hook, and also yarn over with the working yarn and pull the loop and the yarn over through all 4 of those stitches one at a time. And then I'm going to grab that yarn over that's on my hook and pull that working yarn until it comes completely out. All right, and now I can go ahead and work the remaining 2 double crochets of my shell into that same chain space from the row below. So now I've grafted that shell. I'm going to stretch the loop on the hook, pull the waste yarn to unravel till we get to the first double crochet of our column of 2 right here. Insert my hook in the opposite direction I crochet through the base of that first one, grab the loop and pull it through the base of that stitch. Then I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a regular double crochet into the following stitch. And again, I can stretch the loop on the hook and let go of it, pull on the waste yarn to unravel the next chain, and insert into the base of that double crochet. And then I can grab that loop, pull it through the base of that stitch, and work a regular double crochet in the next stitch. So that is the beginning of my grafting row. And the reason I like the waste yarn, being running all the way through here, especially for a real project, is that even after you've unraveled each chain from the stitches that they were holding, the waste yarn still stays in there as kind of a lifeline in case you make a mistake. You can always unravel your grafting row, at least part way back, if not all the way back if you need to, and the stitches above will still be held safely on the waste yarn and they will not, start to fall apart. So I'm going to continue repeating those same instructions for the grafting the next shell column, then the next double crochet column, the next shell column, the next double crochet column, all the way across, and the last one is a double crochet column. So I'm just going to keep grafting all the way across. If you want to see how I did that again, then you can just use the rewind function on the video player and repeat those same instructions again. All right, so I've worked the grafting all the way across, and I can now tie off with the working yarn, and we can now take this waste yarn and pull on it until it comes out. And now we can see that our grafting is totally seamless, totally invisible. You would never tell where we joined the ends of this scarf together. It is completely seamless. So now all we have left to do is just weave in these two ends. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you make this project, let me know how it turns out for you in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, making sure you click the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching.